an individual who worked at a Walmart showed up at his workplace and shot a bunch of people. Horrendous incident. Horrible. I mean, but there's an aspect of this that mainstream media is not really touching on, which is that, the life of a retail worker, the life of a low-wage employee is not a good one. And that, everyone, when these shootings happen, the left says access to firearms and the right says mental health. Well, let's talk about mental health, at risk of being called right-wingers. Let's talk about mental health, because I've applied to work at Walmart before. When I was in college, I applied for a number of jobs, and I applied to work at Walmart, and I thought I would just go in and fill out a job application. Oh, no. They make you take a big, long psychological test to work at Walmart, and I didn't pass. They didn't call me back. Maybe they just didn't have any openings. But, I mean, it was this big, if I remember correctly, it was like this folder, this like binder with all these multiple choice questions that were very strange. And I carefully had to fill out those questions in order to work there. A lot of the jobs I applied for back in those days made me do that. And, I applied to work as like a barista. And I remember they had me, fill out, like, the questions were weird. Like, when people give me instructions, are they A, smarter than me, B, just as smart as me, or C, not as smart as me, or D, I don't know. And weird psychological screening that goes into working at Walmart. And that's because of the fact that Walmart has invested a huge amount of money into what they call industrial psychology. Industrial psychology, which is the science of capitalists exploiting their workers and getting the most out of their workers as they can by using scientific, tested psychological methods. I'm not exaggerating. Google industrial psychology. It is a thing. And, there's a reason that Sam Walton won the Presidential Medal of Freedom. He was given an award by George Herbert Walker Bush, the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Why? Because he was the Henry Ford of the service sector. Henry Ford, the brutal capitalist of Ford Motor Company, with his speed ups and his assembly line, he developed all kinds of methods for perfecting assembly line production and mastering control over his workers on the assembly line. And he was a pioneer of exploiting workers on the factory floor. Well, Sam Walton, the founder of Walmart, he was the Henry Ford of the retail sector. He pioneered the art of psychologically manipulating, learning every dirty trick to squeeze his employees as much as he possibly could. And there's all kinds of weird things that Walmart does. For example, one thing that I've heard about Walmart, fascinating to me, is that Walmart is notorious for making employees work off the clock, for making people, work off the clock, and, when they're not getting paid. I mean, that's illegal. That is completely illegal. However, Walmart does that. And part of the way that they get away with it, from what, again, I've read, is that they let people steal. Right? They let employees steal. They have a policy where managers are told to kind of look the other way when employees are stealing. And so the employee thinks, well, I don't want to rock the boat. I'm getting away with stealing a stereo or stealing a computer. I'm getting away with that. And so on top of that, I might as well, not say anything. Because if I say, something, I might rock the boat, and they might, realize that I'm stealing things. And it's a psychological trick. The amount of money they're getting out of these employees by making them work off the clock is far more than the amount that they steal. But in the mind of the employee, it's equal, right? And that this is the psychological manipulation that is used by Walmart. It's industrial psychology, right? And and that there are many things they do. There's a reason they have this psychological test for all the employees who work there. And so if you think about it, Walmart has kind of become a symbol of people being reduced to financial calculations, of the manipulation of people to make super profits. I mean, it has become a symbol of that, right? Walmart, they talk about how Walmart comes to a town and it lowers its prices as low as it can. It puts all the local businesses out of business, and then it raises the prices right back up. They talk about the Walmart scheme. I don't know what that is. I have no idea what that is, Jason. But it's a Walmart scheme. They talk about this. And so this employee at a Walmart, I don't know what happened, right? Was he terminated, or he was mad at his coworkers or something? But he went to work and he opened fire. Now, an important other aspect of this isn't directly related to Walmart, but we live in a society now that is oozing with pessimism. People think there's no hope. People think there's no purpose. And it's a conscious reality that social media is promoting suicide right now. I mean, social media is getting into people's minds, making them hopeless, making them think there is no future. And killing people. And I have said many times, Netflix, right? Netflix. I mean, whoever runs Netflix, there are some evil people that are running Netflix. Why? For this reason, right? I'll tell you this plain and simple. I work in the media. Did you know this? I work in the media. That's my job. And one thing that I'm well aware of is that you are not allowed to report on suicides. If you're in the local news, I was here in New York and somebody killed themselves, jumped off the Empire State Building or whatever, I can't do a story on that. You know why? Because it is documented that if you do a story in the news about Joe Bob jumped off the Empire State Building, there will be people who read that and think, oh, they killed themselves, so can I. And every time you report on a suicide, the suicide rate goes up. And so you can't do it. It's a danger to public health. It is against journalistic ethics to report on suicides. And little known fact, the suicide rate is higher than the homicide rate. Now, people don't believe that. It's one of those statistics that people hear and they say that can't be true. And the reason for that, the reason that people don't believe that is because media doesn't report suicides. People kill themselves more than they kill other people. However, when people kill other people, they put it on the news. When people kill themselves, they don't put it on the news. So as a journalist, it is against journalistic ethics. It's not illegal. I guess you can do it. It's technically legal. Okay. It's technically legal, but it is against journalistic ethics to report on suicides. So, with that in mind, with the understanding that you cannot report Joe Bob jumped off the Empire State Building because that will kill people. People will see that and become more suicidal, and it will happen. I mean, if I did a story today that said Joe Bob jumped off a building, I would probably have 2 or 3 deaths on my hands because there would be 2 or 3 people who read in the newspaper about Joe Bob jumping off the building and said, oh shit, I can do it too. And so you can't do it, right? It's unethical as a journalist to report on suicide, right? So with that in mind, how the hell can Netflix do 13 Reasons Why? How? There is no ethical defense. There is no ethical defense of 13 Reasons Why. Edward Bernays was the uncle of Reed Hastings, Netflix CEO. There is no ethical defense of it. And a lot of people say, oh, but Caleb, you haven't watched the show. I refuse to watch the show. I don't want to think about it. And people are like, well, Caleb, just watch the show. If you can't report Joe Bob jumped off a building, how the hell can you do a TV program directed at children, at minors, at teenagers that is literally the dark fantasy of a suicidal person, right? She kills herself, but she makes videos first, and they all watch the videos and they realize what pain she was in, and it is the twisted, demented fantasy of a suicidal person. And you can't, I mean, there is no ethical defense of it. And the suicide attempt rate has increased as a result of it. That is, and it's documented. There are a number there have been teenagers who've killed themselves, and their parents found the note, and they admitted, afterwards, yeah, I got the idea from 13 Reasons Why. You can't do it. It's not ethical. There is no defense. Now, it's not illegal, right? We're not going to have a law. You can't do story. I mean, but it's not ethical. But Netflix is doing it. And they made a second season of it. I think they even made more seasons of it. It's not ethical. There is no defense of that. None. There is no defense of making a program that, that will kill people. I mean, but they do it because they're trying to kill us. They are trying to kill us. Silicon Valley is full of people who sit there and are thinking about, oh, there's too many people in the world and there's too many inferior people. We need to get them out of the gene pool. We need the superior ones to start breeding. And it is full of eugenicists and Malthusians, and it is full of sinister, evil people who think there are too many people in the world, who think that they are so smart because they work at Silicon Valley. They had the highest score at Harvard, and they've been on their computer their whole life. These antisocial, psychotic, sociopathic computer nerds who read Ayn Rand and think that they're Ubermenschen, that they're the great man. I'm the great man of the world, but no one's ever recognized how great I am. And there's a bunch of these sick, psychopath, antisocial computer nerds out there who are sitting there going, if only more of these useless eaters would kill themselves, then humanity would recognize my greatness. I'm the superior one, but no one knows it because I sit on my computer all day. Yes. It's the same kind of people that they accomplish nothing in their life, but they engage in cancel culture obsessively. They have no job. They got nothing going for them. They're just sitting at home. But it's somebody in another state who they've never met before is accused of being transphobic. So they're the guy who calls up their boss. Did you know that your employee said a transphobic thing on Twitter once? And I'm going to put out that you hire transphobes. I'm going to destroy your business. And they're trying to get someone fired in another state because somebody they heard online that they said something. I mean, this is the same kind of person who their interaction with the world is through a computer screen. They have no emotions. They have no empathy, except empathy for themselves and this inner rage and hatred for themselves. And the way that they kind of shut down the voice in their head that says you're a failure, you screwed up, they shut it down by fantasizing that they're an Ubermenschen. This is your typical this is your technocrat on Silicon Valley. That's what we're dealing with. Your Silicon Valley technocrat with an Ubermenschen complex, with an Ayn Rand fetish, who sits there and is thinking, and they want people to kill themselves. They do. They want people to kill themselves. And so, computers and all of that, they're putting out pessimism. They're just pumping our society full of pessimism. But here's the thing, and this is the interesting thing, right? What makes 13 Reasons Why so vile? Right? Well, the premise is the girl doesn't just kill herself. She kills herself in a way that gets her a lot of attention. She kills herself in a way that the world finally looks into what she had to say. The world finally hears her. That is what mass shooters do. Mass shooters are often people who would be suicidal. They're people that would be suicidal. However, it's not enough for them to kill themselves. Oh, no, not enough for them to kill themselves. They want to go down in a blaze of glory. They want to take all kinds of innocent people with them. They want their face on the news. They want everyone to look into how awful their life was and try to figure out why they did it and empathize with them. Mass shooters are suicidal people. They've been pumped full of the suicide porn and the hopelessness and the pessimism and all of that. And they're seething with hate for the world and inability to connect with other people and just contempt for humanity. But they've got a special brand of narcissism to accompany it, where it's not enough for them to just take themselves out. They expect to get killed by the police. They want their face on the news. They want a 13 Reasons Why scenario where everyone talks about why and how hard their life was for them. So you wonder why we're producing mass shootings. We have a culture that is encouraging depression, encouraging pessimism, encouraging suicide. And on top of that, we have a culture that encourages narcissism. Everyone's concerned about their image. Everyone's concerned about Facebook. Everyone's got their Twitter. Oh, what do people think of me? How many likes did I get? No one understands. So you set up a society where you're isolating people from each other. You're getting people hopeless and depressed and anti-human, breaking people's ability to connect with other people. You have them on a job where they're being psychologically profiled. So the Sam Walton family, one of the richest families in the world, can manipulate them more to squeeze more money out of them. Are we shocked that one of them, for lack of better terms, he goes postal? That he became so depressed and so suicidal, but he was also pumped up with this desire for vengeance and this desire for attention that he lost his mind and he shot up his workplace. Now, obviously, I'm not saying this man is justified. I'm not saying he should be released from prison or anything like that. He's obviously a murderer. He needs to go to prison. Make sure, if he's still alive, it needs to make sure he never does this again. But this is the symptom of the psychological manipulation that our culture has, right? Where nobody feels validated, right? I mean, it sounds like this guy lost his job, right? Am I right? Did he get terminated? He lost his job. He felt like his life was over. He felt like he was destroyed. And so he felt like my life is over. But he's like, I am going to kill myself, is basically what he thought. But I want people to know about me. I want to be remembered. And so I want my 13 Reasons Why moment where people see me as the tragic anti-hero. He wanted to be the Joker, right? He wanted to be Macbeth, right? He wanted to be the tragic anti-hero, right? That's what he wanted to be. I mean, makes perfect sense. The way our society is set up, it makes perfect sense that people keep acting this way. Maybe we need to set up our society a different way. Maybe we need to change things. These are my reflections on the Walmart shooting. And I mean, it needs to be discussed. I think that this is a problem between the Joker and 13 Reasons Why and the pessimism being pumped out of our phones every day. And on top of that, why did he feel he needed validation via shootings? Right? This guy felt like he wasn't heard. He felt like people didn't feel his pain. He felt like there wasn't any empathy for him. Why did he feel like the only way to make the world know what he was suffering was to go out and murder a bunch of people? Why couldn't he have had a therapist or a counselor? Why couldn't he have been part of a church community? Why couldn't he have had a family that could give him that kind of empathy and validation? Why couldn't he have, been involved in the YMCA or the Boys and Girls Club or, but all these organizations are breaking down. Young people don't join churches. Young people don't join community organizations. Veterans organizations are falling apart. Kids don't even, they didn't even go to school. They sat on their computers all, for a year getting school over the computer. This is a problem. Parents and their kids don't trust each other. We are learning to be radical individuals. This is liberalism taken to its logical conclusion. Right? Where everyone's an atomized individual, all on their own. None of that brutal authoritarian collectivism, putting people in groups with other people. None of that learning to tolerate other people's flaws. None of that, dealing with stuff you don't like. None of that learning to have patience. None of that. No, none of that. None of that. Oh, no. None of that. It's all just individualism. You're an individual on your own. We've got the elite, the ruling class, the capitalists trying to suck as much money out of you as possible and trying to atomize you into an isolated, useful consumer, a useful battery in the matrix. That's what we got here. And of course, it's manifesting itself this way. And I can't be the only person who's smart enough to see these links. I can't be. There's got to be other people that see this, but they just don't care, because the ultra rich, the Malthusian social engineers that are at the top of our society, they want this to keep happening. They want the death rate to be rising. They want more quote unquote useless eaters to die. And they ain't at Walmart shopping to get shot at. And this is the reality. The sinister social engineering of the ultra rich is playing out to its logical conclusion. And those are my thoughts on the Walmart.